Welcome to Career in Science, Theology, Philosophy, and Spirituality. This is the Center of Science, Philosophy, Theology, and Spirituality with an LGBTQ perspective. And that's C.C. Winans singing with Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, Comforter. Thank you so much, C.C. Winans singing Comforter together with the great Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. And it is a very beautiful choir. One thing I like about Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, it was a is a multicultural choir. And people from different walks of life, and they all sang, and they sang about comfort. And this is a song. We are sending a message of comfort to Pittsburgh and to the Jews in America and Americans and everybody around the world. The Bible is clear. And not only the Bible, Jesus is clear that you comfort those who are mourning and you mourn with those who are mourning. If people are crying, you can cry. But if you are not crying, you can give comfort. You know, there's some people who are strong. And that's why the Holy Spirit was called and is called the Comforter, the Paraclete. He strengthens. And the beauty thing about the Holy Spirit in the Hebrew, as we did in the other video, in the Hebrew, the Holy Spirit is a feminine element. But in the New Testament, the Holy Spirit is a masculine element. And that's why he's called the Comforter and the Paraclete, meaning he strengthens and encourages. And in the Hebrew, most of the times when they talk about the Holy Spirit, Ruach Kodesh, it was actually a feminine. The feminine spirit, this feminine side of God is a spirit. And so that's beautiful because it means that you can get comfort from the masculine and you can get comfort from the feminine. You can get comfort from both masculine and feminine. That's why you have a single parent and you have both parents, you know. Whether the parent is a male or a female and they're single parent, it is not an issue. Whether it's even gay parents or lesbian parents, it's not an issue. You will get comfort from either element, from the masculine side or the feminine side, or even the neutered side. So let's just have a minute of silence as we remember the loss that happened in the weekend at Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue. All right, thank you so much for that moment of silence. We are going to discuss, we are discussing comfort to Pittsburgh, and it's going to be a very short video, but touching on the issues that are around America right now. And you know, people will wonder, why are you so concerned about America? You know, you have to be concerned about the whole world. Personally, I'm someone who is concerned about many things. And I'm concerned about humans everywhere. That's why I like watching the news. I like knowing what's happening in the world. Some people are not like me, and I don't force anybody to be like me. You know, if you don't like following the news, that's not your problem and shouldn't be my problem. You know, that's who you are. You know, everybody has different priorities in life. Some people focus on other things, others focus on other issues, others have to look for money, others have to. So everybody's in a different situation in life. And for me personally, I like knowing things. I like being concerned. I like understanding the world. And so whenever anything happens and it's very big, I really discuss about it. And of course, shootings have happened in America. And maybe this could be the last one, but I highly doubt, because most of the shooters have a problem mentally. So they just go berserk. So the best way to reduce shootings would be all the people who have guns right now, they need to do mental health assessment. And if they are mentally unwell, they can take away the guns from them. But if you are mentally sound, you will stay with your gun. And that is what should happen. That's the conversation that should be. If you want to stop gun violence, it's simple. Just do. The people who have the guns right now, yeah, they may be mentally unwell. Like what has happened to this guy who is a shooter, and he shot. Can you imagine shooting at a synagogue? You didn't even go to steal. You just went to shoot people. It is really weird. It's actually madness. And anyway, the courts are dealing with it, and we leave it to them. So we just want to speak comfort, and how we are speaking comfort is people to understand the situation in America. And it is bringing a lot of topics. People are talking about, they're really discussing why are humans like this? Why are people like this? And I was even discussing with someone on my Facebook page, and we were discussing, and we said, I even asked him, why did God have to create a tree of knowledge of good and evil? Why did we have to know evil? I mean, he would have just created people not knowing good. I mean, only knowing good. If evil was that bad, I mean, then we don't need to know it. And he couldn't answer me. And I told him, I'm going to ask God. I will ask God. Yes, I will. I will ask him. Because there's no way you can blame humanity for all of the wrongs when you are in charge. That's it. So, anyway, back to what happened in Pittsburgh. So, Pittsburgh has made me think about nationalism, made me think about anti-Semitism, made me think about racism. Because remember, what has happened in Pittsburgh happened in line with the what is called the attacks, the terrorist attacks on politicians like Soros and Obama and Hillary Clinton, basically Democrats. But George Soros was the main one, because people needed to have seen that there was something happening, because George Soros is also a Jew, and then the synagogue is a place where Jewish people worship. So there's a wave of anti-Semitism in America. And this anti-Semitism is because of politics. Most of the times Jews are seen to be on the Democrat side. Or not only Jews are on the Democrat side. I would say it this way. Jews tend to always put their interests with any president that's in power, be it Republican or Democrat, which is a good thing to do. By the way, I'm not against lobbying. I'm not against telling people interests, that these are our interests. Even black people should have that. Remember when the black pastors went to see Trump? Yes, that's what you should do. He is in charge, so go and face him. If it's a Democrat, go and face a Democrat. If it's a Republican, go and face a Republican. Even an independent can become president. Who knows? The famous American Chinese, who is a basic income guy, he can become president. What are you going to do? Are you going to say we can't see him because he's an independent? No, you will go and see him. I think his name is, I've forgotten his name. I like him very much, by the way, because I support basic income. And I hope he's doing well in the run-up. Of course, he's going to be focusing around in 2020, so we wait and see. But the fact is, yes, the Jewish interest, there's Jewish interest, there's LGBTQ interest, there is black interest. Every group, even whites have interest. Yes, every group has an interest. And so when you have an interest, you go to see the king, you go and see the president, you go and see him, and you tell him these are our issues, and we have issues, problems. So in America, the Jews it's not necessarily, they mostly support Democrats because Democrats tend to stay with minority groups. So most minority groups are actually Democrat, have a long history being with the Democratic Party. Even if the Democratic Party is has a very weird history. You know, it's the Republicans that set slaves free. You know, and the Democrats were based in the South. Can you imagine? It's very weird. And then now it's blacks actually support Democrats more than Republicans. And some blacks are leaving Democrats because of the history, forgetting that it's not about history that you pick a party. It's about what they are saying right now. Yes, because your history can be bad, but it doesn't mean you're going to have a bad future. You can change it. And your history can be good, and it doesn't mean you're going to have a good future. You can have a bad future when you had a good history. And you can have a bad history when you're actually going to have a good future. Like what happened to the Democratic Party. Democratic Party started badly. Of course, Ku Klux Klan, all of these things, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? They changed. They now accepted black people. They helped the women, you know, through reproductive rights. They helped the LGBTQ community. I mean, LGBTQ persons got gay marriage under a Democratic presidency. So that's enough for you to know the Democrat Party really changed, because I don't think they would even allow gay people if you are discriminating against black people when you began. So, and the Republican Party started, well, of course, Abraham Lincoln emancipating black people, and then what happened is it morphed into something weird because of politics. So things change. That's what happens. Entities change, people change, and that's what is happening in America. So you have to understand that when you have interests, do not be partisan. Be a bit independent so that you can deal with everyone who comes in power. Because like right now, like what I always tell LGBTQ groups, I tell them, you know what? You need to see Trump because he's the president. Yes, that's what you do. You don't say that because he's homophobic and transphobic, you won't meet him. You need to do it so that he's the one in power. And you'll have to meet him and tell him, these are our concerns. We're not happy with what you're doing as a president, and you are oppressing us. Like what's happening to the transgenders. All the transgender organizations in America should even petition the White House. Write a petition and tell him to sit down and read the science. And if he can't read the science, then he has a problem. So that's what I'm saying about everything that's happening in America. And today on Pittsburgh still, the Jewish members of the Pittsburgh community actually told Trump not to go and see them because Trump wants to go and visit Pittsburgh. And they want him on one condition, that he denounces white nationalism. And I agree with these Jews. Yes, he needs to denounce white nationalism. Why? And this is why we're doing this video with the strong concordance. We want to look at the word nation to understand what is nationalism. What is nationalism? And we're going to do that to look at it so that we can, in a very short way, very firm way. Nationalism, okay, in the Bible, there are few words that refer to nation, and that's what we want to do. Like you see, let's come to Hebrew. And we want to see what the word nation means in Hebrew. So nation in Greek, okay, that's in Greek. I didn't want Greek, I wanted Hebrew. So let's first look for Hebrew. There you are, Hebrew. In Hebrew, nation means Ummah. And it's a feminine word, Ummah. And in Hebrew, another Hebrew word for nation is Goyi. Goyi. This is nation or people. And this is the one they called the Gentiles. The Gentiles nations were called Goyi or Goyim. And then you find other words here, Gog, Rosh. All of these are nations. So let's focus on Ummah. And in Arabic, even Ummah is called nation, but not necessarily nation, but what do you call it? They call it the brotherhood. Yes, Ummah is a brotherhood in Arabic. And it's also called, even the word Umayya or Jumaya, Jumuiya, the republic, it comes from the word Ummah, Umayya. And this is what you have there. So Ummah comes from Aramaic, and it means a nation, and it means a people. And Ummah forms Umayya, Ummah, Umayya, Umayya, Ummah, Umayya, Umayya, Ummah, and Umayya. All of those are the word nation in Hebrew. Now, let's go to Greek. Now, you see, that is the meaning. And now we want to go to Greek. Now, in Greek, the word nation is ethnos. The word nation means ethnos. And ethnos is where we get the word ethnic. You see, race, a race. Please watch that. In Strong's Greek, it is a race, a nation. And that is, and then you also have genus, family, offspring, race, nation, kind. So when you are a nation, you are a family. When you're a nation, you are a race. When you're a nation, you are an offspring. When you're a nation, you are a kind. And you're an ethnic group, because ethnos is an ethnic group. So there's an ethnic group. So what has happened, now these are nations. So, and there's a best word that Jesus said about, okay, there are very many visions people have about the world, the future. And Jesus gave the future of the world, his view of what's going to happen. And he said that nations will fight against nation. Now, why I look at Jesus' visions lightly is because nations have always been fighting each other. So it's the truth. They will always be fighting each other. So race, nation, nations, as distinct from Israel. You see? This is Greek. So Greek, in the Greek, they also, when you use the word ethnos, it was to refer to Gentile nations. It was not to refer to Israel. Because Israel had a language. Israel was so, they put themselves as Israel, as a chosen nation, and they called the other nations Goyim and the Gentiles. So only those who were in Israel were in Israel. Israel was just called Israel, the Ummah. So there was Ummah nation and the Goyim nation. So Ummah, it refers to the Israelis as a nation and the Jews as a nation. Then Goyim refers to the Gentiles. So the Greek also respected that, and they called the nations ethnos. So the ethnic groups of the world were Gentiles, according to the Greek at that time. And Jews were not necessarily an ethnic group. They were just alone as Ummah. Now, this is the Bible. What the Bible is? The Bible is a dictionary, and it's an ancient dictionary. That's what you need to understand. An ancient, indirect dictionary. You see, you can't read the Bible if you don't know the words in the Bible. Everybody who wrote the Bible or the books in the Bible, they knew that language. This was not written by an Australian, a Japanese, sat down and wrote the Bible. No, he didn't know Hebrew. So whoever wrote the Bible knew Hebrew first. You first know the language, then you write. You think in it, and then you start writing. That's what the Bible is. That's why I'm calling the Bible an indirect or a quasi-dictionary. And you see, it has already defined to us what the Hebrews call nation, and they have two words that call nation. One word is Ummah, that refers to the Jewish nation, and the other word is Goi, that refers to the Gentiles. And then now we've seen Greek call nations, call them ethnos. You see, now we are coming to our new dictionaries of today. Nationalism. Before we go to nationalism, let's go to nation. Nationalism is a political, social, economic system characterized by the promotion of the interests of a particular nation, especially with the aim of gaining and maintaining sovereignty, self-governance over the homeland. Now, before we go back, let's go to nation. A nation is a stable community of people formed of the basis of a common language, number one, territory, economic life, ethnicity, or psychological makeup manifested in a common culture. A nation is distinct from a people and is more abstract and more overtly political than an ethnic group. It is a cultural, political community that has become conscious of its autonomy, unity, and particular interests. So you see, that's what a nation is. It's a community of people. It's not a people, it's a community. It's a union of people based on a common language. Like, look at the country called France. What is the common language? French. What is the territory? France. What's the economic life? They use euros. What is the ethnicity? What's the common ethnicity? Majority of the French people are Francs. And their psychological makeup manifested in a common culture. What's the common culture in France? They have the French culture. You know, French music, made up French sports, French activities, French cuisines, French history. All of these create a common culture that unites a people. That's why a nation is not a people. A people is just people, you know, people. And they're not necessarily a community. They're just people. But a nation has to be a community. It is united. Now, so we have seen what a nation is, and we've seen is Ummah, and in English it's nation, and Greek it is ethnos. So when you're a nationalist, you are a person who subscribes to the preservation of a community. See, preservation of a community. And preservation of a community, the community that has a common language, has a common territory, has a common economic life, and has a common ethnicity or psychological makeup. Now, when you come to America, because America's issue like now what the Jewish worshippers and the Jewish members of the community in Pittsburgh are asking, or I mean Trump, they're asking Trump to renounce white nationalism. Now, it's going to be a very tricky day today. We're going to see what's going to happen if Trump is going to do that. But I think what he should do, he should really say that he doesn't espouse to white nationalism or racism. Because as you've read the meaning of nation in the Bible, it means a race. So racism is also nationalism. That's what people need to understand. Racism is also nationalism. And because the word nation is race, that's it. And that's what you should understand. And ethnicity is also racism. Ethnocentrism is basically racism. It's where you are concerned about your people, your family. Because a nation, the white nation is a white family. It's like animals. You know the family kingdom, the animal kingdom? It has families. When you look at the taxonomy, the classes, we have family, then we have genus, and then we have species. So there is a family. There's a family of blacks, family of whites, family of Asians, all of these are races. Now, and so familism is nationalism and is racism and is ethnocentrism, because ethnos means nation, which means race, which means family, which means kind. Now, we want to focus on nationalism and see what we've already told you what it is. What do? You protect the interests of a nation. And what's a nation? A community of people. So a nationalist is somebody who protects the interests of a community of people over their homeland. And the political ideology of nationalism holds that a nation should govern itself free, without outside interference, and is linked to self-determination. And nationalism is oriented towards developing and maintaining a national identity, social characteristics, culture, language, religion, politics, and a belief in a common ancestry. Are you seeing the roots of nationalism? So you find very many people who are nationalists, they don't friend people who don't have a common ancestry. That's why people are very angry with white nationalism, because it is not necessarily American nationalism. Because American nationalism has so many common ancestors, more than one common ancestors. Why? They are whites, they are blacks, they are Asians, they are Native Americans. So all of these America is a multinational country. It can never be a nationalist country, because people come from different nations. Therefore, they have different ancestors. Unless you're really saying we come from the Adamic ancestor, the one common ancestor of all humankind, that is the one who is uniting us, then we are one family. And that's why I'm leaving. I've left the racial divide and the national divide. I don't espouse nationalist views or racist views, because I've known something. We are all humans. We all have one common ancestor. Irrespective of what language you speak, what's the color of your skin, your sexuality, we all have one common ancestor. So what does that mean? We are all humans. We are one family. The whole world. Yes, absolutely. The whole world. It is one family. And when you get that understanding, you will rest. You will understand how to deal with people. You have to consciously, and what is understanding? It's to consciously know something. Consciously understand it. Some people don't have understanding of things. because they are not awake or they are not attentive. So, it means, and nationalism therefore seeks to preserve a nation's culture by way of pride, and is closely linked to patriotism, which in some cases includes the belief that the nation should control the country's government and the means of production. Now, there are very many, thanks to the principle of diversity, there are many forms of nationalism, so many. And one of the hardest nationalism is white nationalism. Because people really don't, they wonder why should one be a white nationalist. I mean, don't they have everything? Don't the whites control most of the systems in the world? That's what people say. There is no need of white nationalism. And also white nationalism has had its very ugly history of, a lot of slavery, colonialism, subjugation, torture, wars. Most wars have happened. World War was basically a white war. It was white countries fighting each other. I mean, Africa has yet to have a world war that is in Africa, because in my view, I also find Africans tend to be, they don't really fight a lot. Yes, that's my observation. And it's understandable. Yes, we are different. Blacks are different from whites. It's understandable. There are differences. And when we understand differences, what you need to know, even though we have commonalities, for everything that has a commonality, there is a difference. Because of the principle of uniqueness. Do you know the commonality between you and a table is that you're both material? The common bond between you and a table is materiality. You can touch a table and you can touch your body. So you are both material. But there is a difference. You are animated. The table cannot move. Yes, the table can't move unless someone moves it or something moves it. But you can move without somebody pushing you. So those are the differences. So for everything that has, in a relationship where there is a commonality, there is also a difference. And that's it's very understandable. Even in marriage, in family life, your brothers, you share the same blood, but you may not share the same interests. Yes. You have a partner and you share many things in common, but there are some things you're totally different. Yeah. So that's what you need to understand about humanness and common ancestry. So, historically, nationalism has done this, blah, blah, blah. We don't want to stick on it so much. And you see, there are many types of nationalism. You see the Greek Revolution, the Zionist movement, the Irish Revolution, and it was also a key factor in the Holocaust perpetrated by Nazi Germany and the establishment of the Confederate States of America, whose objective was the preservation of white supremacy. I like this. You see, they are giving us different types of nationalism. We have the Greek nationalism, we have the Jewish nationalism, we have the Irish nationalism, we have the German nationalism, that was Nazi Germany, and we have the American, or what you call the white nationalism, that was to preserve the white supremacy. And then we have, even in the annexation of Crimea by Russia, it was all because of nationalism. Russia said Crimea belongs to them, and it was not happy that Ukraine had Crimea. You see? So nations were fighting. Nationalistic economic policies have also been cited due to the Opium Wars between the British Empire and the Qing dynasty. So the Chinese were not happy with what Britain was doing. Britain was selling opium to the Chinese population. And for it affected the Chinese population. And when the emperor, and I'm very happy to find this again, you know, history, sometimes we leave it hanging. And it's true. Look at China. It was an empire. It was a monarchy. That's why they don't know democracy. Yes. China was an empire. The history of China, they know more about kingdoms than parliament. Never had parliament. So these things, people try and force China to be democratic. It's going to be hard. They can't. They are so used to one man ruling them. Now, anyway, so this is what happened. They became nationalistic in the economic policies, and the Opium Wars came about. Now, nationalism is a new word. It came from the 1844. Very important time when people were looking. The 20th century, a time of profound disillusionment with nationalism, was also the great age of globalism. This is a very important thing to understand. That the term, and then they're saying the term increasingly became negative in its connotations after 1914. You see, it became negative. Why? 1914 is when the World War I began. And so people started saying, when you say you're a nationalist, it was now a bad word, because nations were fighting nations. And so British nationalism was against German nationalism. German nationalism was against Italian nationalism. But the beauty is that despite all of this nationalism happening, even Zionism is a nationalism, is a nationalistic movement. And despite all of those nationalism, there was what you call the great age of globalism. And globalism gave birth to United Nations. It came at the right time. And personally, QSTPS, this channel, this center, is a globalist channel. We stand with globalism because we believe we are one family. The whole world is one family because we came from one common ancestor. All right. So there's a history of all of these. Look at the British flag. You know, the great, you know, Britain is not an old country. It became a United Kingdom when King James decided to unite, Great Britain and Ireland. And so there's a lot of history. You can see the French Revolution was caused on French nationalism, and then the Germans, even the unification of Germany in 1871 was because of German nationalism. People started valuing nationalisms. So national symbols came, anthems, myths, flags, and narratives, you know. So all of these things are components of nationhood. And if you look at ancient countries, they also had national views. Like Israel is one of the best, because the Bible is an ancient book, history book for the people of Israel. And they used to have flags for all the tribes in Israel. They had 12 flags. And they had an army. And the Levites were the priests. So they were an organized nation. And that's why they even called the children of Israel. And all of that. So basically, this is what nations go through. And I want us to go through I want us to now bring it back home to what is happening in the world. As you have seen. And also, don't forget, Africa was a very nationalistic continent. Even the time of independence from the colonial rule, there were many nationalist parties. You know, African ANC is a nationalist party. And ZANU-PF is also a nationalist party. And all of these national parties, I mean, even in Uganda, National Resistance Army, the National resistance movement. It was national. Everyone was nationalistic. So people are nationalistic, but there is some nationalism, and my problem with nationalism, it tends to be very exclusive. I prefer humanism, and that's the principle that UN is in. In fact, UN is sad, it's called United Nations, so it's basically united nationalism, different forms of nationalisms. I think we should have called ourselves United World, UW, and so that we don't, or United Globe, or United Humans, so that we can stem nationalism. Now, as we conclude this video, so we leave you saying, let's ask ourselves, will Trump say that, will he denounce white nationalism today? That's what we're waiting to see. But all I was doing for you is to show you what nationalism is and its effects. And we know the problem of nationalism. Nazi Germany showed us the ugliest side of nationalism. It destroyed it. You see, the problem of nationalism is that it makes you fight another nation. You see what's happening in America? They're sending troops to the Central American refugees. Why? They are not American. So it's nation versus nation. So just keep on watching what's happening. But I want you to know the most important thing that's happening today. Nationalism, there's a wave of global nationalism. And this is just part one of the video. We've just done it under the Pittsburgh incident, which we know has happened because of nationalism. Because there is no way a Jewish national can go and shoot his fellow Jews in a synagogue. You see. So what happened is, this is a war between white national. Of course, you can be a Jew and you can shoot a Jew. Please, you shoot a Jewish. What I'm trying to say is that when you look for doing it, some people do it because of nationalistic tendencies. Because when you're a nationalist, you will not agree with another nation. You see? And you'll only agree with another nation that agrees to work with you. So this is just a tip of the iceberg. We just want to continue thinking about nationalism and what the world is going to do with this global wave of nationalism that is all over the world. Okay, so all comfort to Pittsburgh, and let's fix the world. Too much nationalism is not good for the world.